White Sox! White Sox! Go, go, White Sox! Let's go, 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 White!
Well, hello there, Chicago sports fans. Welcome in, Monsters of the Madhouse. It's Wednesday night, and you know what time that is. And I feel like we all got a little bit of an extra step in this right now because it's a holiday weekend coming up. It's like the unofficial start of summer. This is an awesome time of the year to be a sports fan. So we're very excited to have you guys along with us tonight for Monsters of the Madhouse. And it's brought to you by O'Connor Martial Arts and Fitness. Join the life-changing movement today. TC World of Wonders, where you can make your dad's Father's Day Chicago sports memorabilia come true. Budget Cars, where finding safe, reliable, affordable transportation is no longer mission impossible, but easy. Bridges Scoreboard, which looks like a very cool place. I see your tracks. I see your posts all the time from Bridges Scoreboard. I'm very excited to go visit that very soon. Your Northwest Indiana, Chicago baseball headquarters with the Hall of Fame menu and Serendipity ice cream, where it's always delicious in the summertime as we get ready here for summer. I'm Matt Cooper, born and raised on the south side of Chicago, now living in beautiful Louisville, Kentucky, where it's been beautiful all week long. It's been the mid-80s. It's been great. And I think we got him back on. Yes, my buddy has just come back on, a man that does so much for this show, a man that helps put the show together, a man that writes for the show. His columns are awesome. I read them all the time. Whenever you post something, I read it, and they're great. And he does so much for his family. He's a good family man. And I know we're not a wrestling show. We're not going to talk about wrestling, Clete, but we got a big weekend of wrestling this weekend with 2 different pay-per-views. So I know we can talk about that when we get off, because it's going to be very exciting for that this weekend. But Clete, Stu Campbell, welcome in, man.
Hey, great to be here, Coop. Thank you so much, my friend. Great to see you, Tracks, Taylor. Absolutely. You're not kidding, Coop. We got to talk about one of the biggest wrestling weekends of the year. We'll do that off camera, my friend. But we've got a monster show on Monsters of the Madhouse tonight, and we are going to start off with one of the fastest rising stars in sports media, Coop.
Yes, I see Track's face over there. He wants to talk wrestling for the next 25 minutes, but that's okay, man. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait till a little bit later. Trax, first off, how you doing over there, man? You doing all right?
Yeah, good, buddy. We just had to make a quick switch. Greg is a little under the weather, so I got a hold of my mentor, Taylor's boss and friend. Lester Wiltfong's going to be on here, so we're excited to have him for the umpteenth time. It's going to be great to get tag team by the Windy City Gridiron folks.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting show tonight. We're going to talk a lot about the Bears OTAs a little bit later, because that's going on right now, maybe a little bit around the NFL, as OTAs going on everywhere. It's been fun watching all the videos and photos from all the teams, especially when you're scrolling through Twitter right now. And it's just like, man, it's like we're not that far away from football season. But I am honored to introduce to you guys right now somebody that grew up in Indiana girl right now, who loves Chicago, loves Notre Dame, and is currently living in Jacksonville, the co-host of Jacksonville's 1010XL's Helmets and Heels and SB Nation's Making Monsters for Windy City Gridiron. Taylor Doll, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Hey guys, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Woo.
I wanted to say sorry in advance if you hear banging. My neighbors upstairs are terrible, and they're running around. So if you hear something banging, it's out of my control. It's like a 3-year-old upstairs who likes to jump off the couches at 9 p.m.
Well, if Clete X's you out, he X's you out then. I mean, he's got those fingers sometimes to do stuff like that. No, but welcome in. We're very excited to have you today. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. I was just talking about how this is the time of the year where, I mean, to be a sports fan right now is just awesome because there's so much going on. But even before we get into, we're going to talk a lot of Cubs here with you in a few minutes and a little bit about the Bears. But living down in Jacksonville right now, just very quickly, could you kind of give the vibe of the sports atmosphere in that city? Because I always find that city to be I'm not going to say different, but I feel it's kind of in the middle because you see the Jaguars fans, but they have a quarterback that was drafted in the same round as Justin Fields and looked like a superstar last year. And that's got to be a lot of excitement right now. So is that kind of the vibe right there? Is this guy's is Trevor Lawrence is finally making his strides to be that number one pick, that number one quarterback in the league?
Oh, yeah. The vibes here in Jacksonville are pretty much like the Jags are winning the AFC South. There's not a question. I don't think there's one person here, media-wise or in the fandom that think that's not happening. I think a lot of that also helps that the rest of the AFC South is kind of in a weird spot too. So it's a perfect time for Jags to really have their arrival because there's not a ton of in division competition. So people are like, hey, honestly, even if they win 9 games, they'll be able to win the division. But a lot of other people here, like we actually just did a kind of a video series and had all those shows go through and pick how many games they expected the Jags to win this season. And almost every single person had 11 or 12 wins. Like that's the expectations right now in Jacksonville, that even with the getting a harder schedule because they won a playoff game, their schedule is very favorable for them for the most part. Outside of Bills in London and the Kansas City week 2 game, it's very favorable. So I think the vibes here are definitely expected Trevor Lawrence to hit 35 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards, and win a lot of games.
Yeah, and plus you got a great head coach now too. So I think that's gonna really help. So I think that's so cool to see that. It's great for the NFL. I think it's great for the NFL to have a quarterback like him, to have what we have in Chicago and Justin Fields too. And we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk a little bit about the Bears and the OTAs in just a second. But what made you want to get into media? Because we have that show, we have that personality growing up. You grew up in Indiana, and you got a lot of that growing up in Chicago because Chicago is such a sports city. Like all of us here are big sports fans, and we have that passion with it. But what was a passion? What gave you that passion to pursue that and kind of get you where you're at right now?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like I kind of stumbled into it. I've always loved sports, so I've been a diehard sports fan. That consisted my most days, especially during football season on Saturdays, Sundays. Being a lot of time I've spent in Florida. I am from Indiana, but I've spent a lot of my 32 years in Florida. So being down here, obviously college football runs the world down here, and so Saturdays are huge. But then also you do have obviously Tampa, Miami, and Jacksonville all in Florida. So you have a lot of NFL talk also, but they are really geared in kind of on those teams. But my family's all from either Northwest Indiana or Chicago. So I grew up just diehard Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs fan. And that's just kind of how it was. But I honestly went to college, graduated college to be a teacher. After I graduated and was going to be a teacher, I was like, never mind. I do not want to be a teacher. And so I kind of had a pause where I took a year after college and was like, I need to reevaluate and figure out what I wanted to do. It just so happened that I actually had a friend who said, at this time I wasn't living in Jacksonville, and I had a friend though that was like, hey, there's a radio station in Jacksonville called 1010XL. They just recently became the flagship of the Jaguars. They're really kind of on the rise. It's a newer one, but the guys that are in that station have all kind of been around in the sports media world a lot. So it could be something cool to try out. So I emailed one of the producers there and just said, hey, I'm looking for an internship. I to be honest with you, I don't have experience. I just love sports and I'm super passionate about that what I do in general. So asked if I could just intern for a football season. Did that for 6 months. After the 6 months, they hired me on as like a part-time, just kind of like, hey, when we need you to fill in with the promotions crew or do something like that. And so I slowly built up my way from being a non-paid intern to co-hosting a show and running a social media platform for a radio station. So it was kind of very random for me, but it was always something that in the back of my mind I had a lot of love for. So it was cool I just didn't honestly know I could do it for work, you know?
Wow, I feel like you're telling my story right now because I also went to college to be a teacher and didn't want to be a teacher and got out for a year and tried to figure out what I wanted to do, and I got into radio myself. So I feel like you're telling this like the similar story right here. I'm like, oh my God, that's so hilarious.
That is funny. I actually just read your biography and I was telling your story.
Yeah, pretty much. So let's talk about football here for a second. When you look back at the draft this year, and I feel like the draft was an interesting draft this year because I didn't feel like there were those dominant players that were at the top. Like maybe you can have an argument though, but it wasn't like the years past where you had like the Trevor Lawrence at number 1.
Yeah.
And you had like the distinguished players. But I feel like there was a lot of the same players, a lot of the players that are kind of on the same field, but maybe some that stood out a little bit more, and maybe some that didn't. And But I felt like the safe position when you look at this draft was the offensive line and the tackles in this draft.
Yeah.
And I look at this draft and I think all those tackles that got drafted from the Titans, from the Steelers, I feel like they all could be very good in the NFL. So when you look at the Bears drafting a tackle in the first round, what was your overall observation in general when you take a look at their draft?
I loved it. And I think that my number one, I mentioned this right before the draft. I went on to a podcast right before with some of the Windy City Gridiron people. And I was like, if it's not Paris Johnson, I want Darnell Wright. That's just how I felt about it. I think that protecting Justin Fields is so important, especially it probably would have been a little different if they hadn't got DJ Moore in the offseason. I may have been shifting more of trying to get JSN or someone and trade a little farther back. But in my head, I was like, I just think it's so important to protect him. We saw last year the glimpses of when he did have time to throw the ball. It was just a world of difference for the majority of the time. And like you said, this draft was weird because aside from, Will Anderson, I personally didn't look at this draft and say, okay, we have to have this person if you're sitting there. And for me, Will Anderson, I knew was going to go towards the top. So I didn't think that was realistic if we weren't staying at 1. So once Will Anderson was out of my head, I was like, okay, what's the next thing that really I think is going to help Justin Fields and the Bears? And I think it is that position. It was just even like a double win for me. The fact that he is a true right tackle. He likes playing right tackle. That's what he did in college and at elite level in college. He can also swing and play left. So God forbid something happens to Braxton or they want to make that a little bit of a battle in camp or whatever. You do have options to do something like that. But I just thought you're nailing it on the actual position need. You're nailing it on talent because this kid's a monster. And I know by this time everyone's seen his film against Will Anderson. But there's multiple times that he's went against Will Anderson and Jalen Carter, and he took him down each time. He was able to handle himself in those games. And so those are the guys that he's going to be going up against talent like that. And if he can handle himself in those moments, I don't think there's going to be a big lag in him being able to handle it in the NFL.
Now, do you think with Jalen, you just mentioned Jalen Carter here a second ago, and because he was, let's face it, the sexy pick in this draft before all the legal and the trouble this came out with him. Do you think the Bears would have traded that far down if all that stuff did not come out with him? Because everything you watch of him, he was incredible in college. Let's just be honest. Like he comes from a great program, and I think he actually went to a really good situation in Philadelphia. Now I think that could have. I don't think that could have worked out any better because I think he can go in there and be with a lot of veterans and thrive. But do you think they would have traded that far down? Do you think they would have traded a couple of picks down if all that stuff didn't come out with him?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I didn't really think about it that way, but probably not, honestly. Especially if after, let's say, none of that happened. And Ryan Poles went and met with him and they did all of, their meetings and all of the inside stuff that they did. We heard about the crazy workout Darnell Wright had to do with them. So just imagine what he would have put someone like Jalen Carter and Will Anderson through if he's doing that to a right tackle. But that's interesting. And I think that honestly, maybe not. Maybe they would have hoped that the Texans would just want to trade, or the Colts. I know the Colts was a talk for a while at that 4. And so maybe it would have been something else like that. But the one thing I think we've learned about Ryan Poles this last year and a half or so is that he's a big character person, and he says it, but he speaks it and does it also. And we hear coaches sometimes say that, like, we want good guys. We want, we want the players to get along, and we want this locker room this, but then the moment they have the chance to go get Antonio Brown, they jump on it because they actually don't care that much about it. And I think that Ryan Poles does. And I really do. And maybe that's not, Jalen Carter can be absolutely phenomenal in the NFL, and we can look back and be like, dang, like we could have had Jalen Carter. And there may be moments like this in his career where we're kind of like, we could have had the chance to have him, but was it the best fit for Chicago? No. And I think, like you said, I think it was perfect for Philly in the situation of how everything went down. Number one, it's the Georgia world in Philly right now. They have so many dogs on that team that helps. He has people that he's comfortable with, he knows, and like he has some leadership and some trust in that place. But if something does happen where it ends up he gets in some trouble or things don't go too well, the Bears are going to look very smart in this situation. And I think that Ryan Poles is looking at it this way, like, okay, do I want to look smart in case something bad happens? Or do I want to say, hey, like, we missed this, but we had reasonings, like we had legitimate reasonings for not picking somebody who's getting in trouble. But I wouldn't be surprised if all of that didn't happen, if he would have tried to stay at maybe like that 4 spot.
Yeah, I find that interesting because I think in this draft specifically this year, as we were talking about that, I think a lot of the teams kind of took the players that kind of fit their systems. As I kind of as I looked at it, especially the first and second rounds, as I saw some of the players that fell a little bit. Like when I saw Joey Porter fall into the second round, I'm like, boy, there couldn't have been a better fit for that guy than going to Pittsburgh. And I think he's going to thrive in there. I think the whole entire draft's like that. We want to talk a little bit of Cubs with you in just a minute, but overall, when you take a look at the Bears' schedule right now, is there something that kind of stands out to you? Are there a couple of games or a couple of weeks into the season that you think, well, I think they can probably get 7 or 8 wins? Yeah, there it is. It's up right now. Because I said the first game to me, the most intriguing one is one of the ones is the first game against Green Bay. They're going to throw Jordan Love right in that fire for Green Bay, and I'm interested to see how that is with him. And then you got Kansas City week 3, and then there's just some very interesting games. The Lions twice within the span of a couple of weeks. How about you when you look at that? What stands out to you?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I do not like about this schedule. And I kind of did a breakdown of the schedule with Robert Schmitz a couple weeks ago, or whenever the schedule came out. I'm losing track of time at this point. But it's scary to me, the start and end with Green Bay. I think there's the potential that we're seeing 2 very different Jordan Loves between those 2 games. Obviously, like you just said, he's getting thrown into his second start ever in the NFL and his 4th season in the NFL in game 1. On the road at Soldier Field, so it's going to definitely be one of those situations where he's kind of thrown into the fire. But at the same time, there's a lot of new guys on this defense also. And when we look at this defensive line and the linebacker group, it's almost going to be completely revamped from last season. So there's a lot of newness on our side too. In addition to the offensive line, obviously adding Darnell Wright, adding Nate Davis, those are going to be new guys. We're not quite sure Cody Whitehair, Lucas Patrick, who's going to be sitting at center, or is Kramer going to come in and make a run for it in camp? I'm not quite sure. Justin Fields, obviously with new weapons, still kind of adjusting to DJ Moore. Claypool hopefully now is starting to pick up a little bit. So there's still some newness for me too. So that's why I'm glad it's at least at home to have the home crowd behind them a little bit. It's the 425 for me, 325 for Central Time people. But it's one of those situations where everybody's kind of getting thrown into the fire. And week 1 of NFL games, they're so unpredictable. You do not know how ready certain people are going to be. And then, like I said, there's the potential you're waiting until the whole entire season, and now it's the last week. And I feel the NFL does this to us on purpose because they're hoping that somehow Green Bay hangs around. And at the end of the season, this is helps whether Green Bay or Bears get into the playoffs. Like they are 1,000% hoping that's the situation that plays off, just because the NFC North has the potential to be pretty wide open. And then obviously I don't like that we have such a late bye week again. We saw last year by the time we got to the bye week, it was just half our team was gone or hurt, and there was just the momentum was dead. Obviously that shifts a little bit if they have a better record heading into the bye week. But there's a couple games I'm really excited about. The Panthers game for me, I think is going to be fun just because there's this fun little rivalry happening right now, because obviously we want the Panthers to lose because we have their number 1 pick. They're kind of wanting DJ Moore to maybe bust a little bit because they've been arguing with us that he's not a number 1 wide receiver, and we've been going back and forth of who won that trade and all of that stuff. Young quarterback now, a rookie quarterback. So it's going to be, that one's fun for me. That's one I have circled on my calendar, and obviously primetime game 2 helps that. Washington, that game was terrible last season. Another primetime game against Washington. So I'm hoping that we come into this game and show everybody that last year was like a one-off, because honestly, right after Washington last year, the offense clicked and we scored like 150 points in the next 4 or 5 games. And that was just one of the worst, slowest games ever in the entire world. There's a lot of question marks. And that's one of the things that we kind of talked about in my podcast is who's the quarterback of Tampa? Is it going to be Baker Mayfield? Is it going to be Kyle Trask? Is Russell Wilson going to be playing like Russell Wilson was playing last season? Because if he is, that Denver game's not so scary. I mentioned Washington. Obviously, the Vikings and Lions are interesting this year because are they going to look like what they did last season, or at least for the Lions towards the end of last season? Or are they going to be completely different teams? The Saints, what is Derek Carr going to look like there? Because we've seen Derek Carr have really good statistical seasons, but we've never seen him be able to ravel it all into like a complete winning, consistent product. Browns, Deshaun Watson, again, bad season. Is he going to take a step up this season? That's a big question mark. Kyler Murray, the Arizona situation is wild to me because a few seasons ago, people were ranking Kyler Murray as one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And now they're talking about are they going to draft a quarterback after this season? The Falcons too, that's questions. I think it's Desmond Ridder, or I can't even remember, two quarterbacks that Taylor Heineke, I think, something like that.
Taylor
That's
Heineke, yes.
Okay. So it's those two quarterbacks in Atlanta. So again, another quarterback question of who's going to be starting by that time. So the schedule is very weird because we have, whether it be young quarterbacks or questions at quarterbacks on these teams, or are this quarterback going to suck again? Or are they taking a step up? That's a lot of our schedule. And I think that's going to depend on the record a whole lot. Which guys are we getting in each of those weeks?
Yeah, I agree with you. That's kind of how I saw it too when you were starting to pick some of those games, especially when you said, like, right away you said Tampa and Baker Mayfield. I'm like, okay, man, that's a game we got it. When you want to take a step forward, those are games you got to take a step forward to.
Yeah.
You know, Taylor, we're talking to Taylor Doll right now. Before we jump into the Cubs, really quickly, we got a question that came across the screen from Douglas. He wants to know your opinion on the Bears' defensive line going into the season.
Yeah, I'm hesitant. I think that it's definitely improved from last season. And I think that last season, obviously towards the beginning of the year when Robert Quinn was still there was moments where you felt like it could start to click, but you could never really get any pass rush from anywhere, the interior or the edge, which I think there was a moment. Dominique Robinson had a couple games in the beginning of the season where we were like, okay, this kid's going to be a monster. And I did a Making Monsters on him because I was like, he's playing out of his mind right now. Talked to his brother and everything. And his brother's like, that's who he is. So I was super excited. That kind of died off. I think a large part of that, though, was just how much everything else was just not clicking. And every level kind of helps every level. So when your interior is not playing well, that really puts a lot of pressure on the edges, especially, or the linebacker group, and affecting the corners and everything like that. It's all of these layers of things. And so I think that it will be improved. I would like some sort of slam dunk pass rush added personally, because I just think we don't have that. I think that Dominique and Travis could do enough to where, especially with the interior being improved, and that's I love the Zach Pickens pick. I love some of the things they've done in the draft and the free agency to help get it a little better. But there's no just like full on bam win pick for me when it comes to the line. I think our linebacker groups are going to be one of the better in the league personally. I think that's going to take a major step up. But it just scares me not having enough pass rush, because we noticed how much that kind of wrecked us last season at certain points, or against the run. And we allowed a crap ton of rushing yards in the division. That's what's kind of scary, because I don't expect the Packers to be super pass heavy with Jordan Love right away. So we're going to be worried about Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon instead. And then now in Detroit, obviously we have this new thing with David Montgomery, in addition to a new draft pick they have, and all their running back group, and then the same with Minnesota. So it's in the division. I feel like we're going to have to be able to stop the run, or it's going to get ugly fast. And I think we'll know pretty quick if they fix that part, but I'm not quite sure. I'm saying like we were worse in the league last season, and I think maybe still 20s, 19, 20.
Yeah, we were down at the bottom, and a lot of the stuff we've talked about here on this show over the past month, kind of what you were just saying about the defensive line and the pass rush, and that we're kind of wondering the same thing. Taylor, before we let you go, we still have a couple more minutes with you, and I was hoping Clee would get back on, because he was pretty fired up when me and him were talking about the Cubs before you guys came on, because and he was a little upset that there was a certain person that started the year in the minor leagues and is now doing very, very well. And I was hoping he could come back and ask you that question. But when we take a look at the Cubs in general, I kind of find them as a very interesting team right now, because yes, they haven't played very well the last couple of weeks, and some of the things have kind of stood out, like the bullpen. A lot of talk about the bullpen and what guy you're going to get in there for certain situations in a game. But I also kind of feel like they're right there in the middle right now. You got a couple of players that have come up. You got Morel back up, Mervis up here, and they both look like they could be very good players. And I feel like if you're a Cubs fan right now, that is kind of what you're looking at. Because are they as good as the Dodgers? No, I don't think so. Are they as good as the Atlanta Braves? No, I don't think so. But they can compete. But at the same time, I feel like you got to get some of these players rolling here. And if they go through some of their slumps and some of their go-throughs through the major leagues, do it right now and then kind of get ready for next year. Is that how you see it right now with the Chicago Cubs?
Yeah, I think this year for me was always like, I wasn't expecting the Cubs to be some fantastic team this season. And I did expect them to be competitive because I did think that adding Dansby Swanson and Bellinger, that was already going to take a step up, obviously. And I really had a lot of confidence in Nico Horner. I love Nico Horner. I love Ian Happ. And the player, Christopher Morel, was one that last year when he got sent down, I already wasn't happy. So when I heard he was starting in the minors this season, I was really upset because he is streaky. He has moments right now. Obviously, he's in a major hot streak. He strikes out a bit too much for some people's liking. I get that, but he just brings something too. And I think that when you have a baseball team like you have right now, which is a lot of young talent with a little bit of mix in of some veterans in there that you're hoping can kind of like lift them to the next level occasionally. But when you have that type of team and you're building towards getting better and you're not expecting like, hey, we're winning the World Series this season, then you definitely want somebody like that who just brings like good vibes into the locker room. And you can tell he just loves baseball. And it's the Javi stuff for me. Like Javi was the same way where he struck out a ton. And there was times where you're like, why are you swinging at that? But the vibes he brought to the dugout and the field and everything, like you could just tell he was having a good time, and it made people want to play better. And you could see that already with Chris Morel. Like the moment he does something, he'll hit a bomb again and the whole team's riled up. And then we get some runners on base and things start to pick up a little bit. They've been struggling. There's multiple reasons, I think. And I think some people are starting to target David Ross a little bit at some decision-making things, which hopefully he'll start to adjust, because I do think, like you said, a big part of it is you can't just give up on these guys because they do have a little bit of a down streak. The best players in the league have their moments where they're not hitting the ball consistently, but you do have to let them kind of power through that, get past their moments when they're just not doing well at the plate or whatever. Trust in your guys. I think a one thing too with them is finding where you're putting everybody, because obviously I think when Bellinger's back at center field, and so then you may have to throw Morel, move him around a little bit, put him at third base. It might be a little scary sometimes because that's not really what he does. And so there might be moments where defensively you're getting a little frustrated with Morel, but offensively it's working. And we had to do that with Schwarber for a couple years. So sometimes it's worth it to battle those defensive woes to get runners on base and actually score.
So before we let you go, Taylor, when you take a look at the NL Central, and the reason why I was bringing this up, because the Cubs are kind of stuck there right in the middle. But you look at the NL Central, and there's just nobody running away with that division right now. I mean, the Pirates started off very hot. I still think the Brewers I still think there's going to be something in them. They usually sometimes catch on a little bit. I don't know what to make of the Cardinals right now. I mean, we always think they're going to come back at some point and they're going to go and come on the streak, but I don't think they've looked like any of the Cardinal teams of the past, especially when it comes to their starting pitching in general. So as a Cubs fan, do you want them to continue to compete and see that division's won and kind of get that experience? Or are you kind of looking at it like, well, I don't know if they're at that level yet. We'll just see how it kind of plays out. Where are you at with that?
And I know, because that's the question once we get to this type of year, because you're like, okay, well, the trade deadline, what are we going to do? Are we going to buy or sell? And that's always the question. And that kind of decides what you really do. Do you want to win games? And do you want to maybe hope for a push of something during this season? I say do that, because I mean, like you said, this division is so wonky right now. And the Cardinals started terribly and the Pirates started as hot as you could possibly get. And then the Pirates completely died. The Brewers have kind of just stayed on that flux, kind of like we have. Obviously, it's been a little rough. I think they've lost 20 of the last 29, the Cubs, which is not ideal. But they've also had a really brutal schedule. And that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people like. Marlins are playing really good baseball, and they had to play the Marlins. They're playing the Cardinals when it's hot. They were playing the Astros. They were playing the Twins, two of the best teams in Major League Baseball. So it wasn't like they were playing the Reds and the Pirates during this stretch of losses and losing bad games like that. They're playing really good baseball teams, and they're not supposed to be a really good baseball team right now. They're supposed to be competitive and being able to stay in games. And I think that's what they're doing for the most part. The Twins worked us for a couple games where it was not pretty at all. But I think you go for it. And especially with some of these young guys that are really starting to get hot with Morel. Nico stayed pretty consistent. You could see the drop off when Nico was hurt and he wasn't on the field, how different the baseball team looked without Nico Horner and with Nico Horner. So I think when he's healthy, when Bellinger's back, Morel, I do see us picking up a little bit and maybe going on another little run. And us starting the way it started looks like it could be pretty good. But I think that I say compete. Obviously, once you get to like June, July, if things are looking really rough, maybe you start to adjust your plans and what you want to do. There's some young guys, obviously, that we've constantly been talking about that are still in the lower levels. Brennan Davis, obviously, Pete Crow Armstrong, a lot of these guys that we've talked a ton about. And maybe it's time to see what they can do. That's when you start figuring things out like that. Or do you say, hey, this isn't the season. Let's work with what we got, win the games we can. Let Brewers win the division and go after it next year, you know?
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's the overall feel when I talk to Cubs fans and talk to some of my friends and stuff. They kind of feel like that same vibe. So it's exciting to watch. I'm excited for baseball season. I'm excited to see where they end up. And I think it's going to be a fun summer. So Taylor, first off, we thank you very much for coming on the show today. How can we follow you, by the way? Tell us about some stuff that you got coming up. And how can we get you on Twitter?
Yeah, so my Twitter is at Taydoll1010XL. With that, so I post a ton on there. A lot of my stuff, obviously, on Windy City Gridiron. I have a new project coming out starting actually tomorrow. The episode will be released tomorrow, and I'm doing kind of a cruise around the North is what I'm calling it. So I'm talking to reporters from Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota, just to kind of get their perspective of what the NFC North looks like, because I think the opinion of most people right now is we don't know, like, who's going to win that division. We don't know. I really wanted to get the other team, like those outside opinions of what they think about Justin Fields and what they think about DJ Moore and some of these new improvements and how they think Jared Goff's going to do this season. So we can talk all we want and mock Goff and Kirk Cousins and Jordan Love and kind of hope that Justin Fields is the new king of the North, as we want to say. But obviously they have different opinions. They're watching these guys way closer, and they a lot of times have a lot more faith in them than we do. So yeah, my newest podcast starting tomorrow will be kind of that, a little cruise around talking about the outside perspective of the NFC North and what we're expecting it to look like.
Very excited to listen to that. Yes. Thanks. So we're going to follow along with you, Taylor, and we appreciate you very much. And thank you so much for coming on, talking Bears and Cubs with us, as this is a fun time of the year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. That's Taylor Doll, guys. Man, I love that. The sound effects there, Trax. When did you start picking that up, man? That sounded great right there. Like
in our other show on Monday nights, we got a different look now.
It sounded great. We thank Taylor for coming on, and you guys are watching Monsters of the Madhouse right now. Thank you guys for coming on tonight, watching us. We appreciate everything, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you now, too. I'm very excited to talk to you because I remember being on the show before, and you're the chief editor of Windy City Gridiron. It's Lester Wiltfong. Come on in, Lester. How you doing, man?
Doing good, guys. How y'all doing?
Man, we're feeling good. I don't know about you, Trax, but watching some of the OTAs, watching some of the videos here. We were just talking to Taylor about that here a second ago, but watching some of the videos, man, I don't know how you cannot be excited right now when you got some football popping up in your feeds, even if it's OTAs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time. I mean, the OTAs are popping. They had their first practice the other day. The media gets only so access, but man, as fans, we'll take whatever we get. Those video clips are awesome. You know, the interceptions, the big passes from Justin Fields, everything, whatever it is for as Bears fans, we're hungry for that content.
You know, Lester, one of the things that really stood out to me when I was kind of going through all the tweets coming out is DJ Moore. Now, a lot of us football fans that watch the NFL every Sunday and watch all the games, we know what DJ Moore is. I could tell you that even watching him last year in Carolina, and they had a pretty bad team with some bad quarterbacks, you could tell what a special player he is when you saw him on the field. But then there's a lot of Bears fans that are just kind of getting introduced to him. But what can you say about DJ Moore and everything that you've heard so far and the people that you've talked to? Like, because what Matt Eberflus said the other day, that didn't catch me by surprise, but he kind of blew him away when he was watching him practice.
I mean, he's a legit number one NFL receiver. I mean, I know a lot of fans, they picture an NFL receiver, a number one. They picture a 6'4", a big go up and get it guy. The top NFL receivers in the league, they come in all shapes and sizes. DJ Moore is a legit number one. He's put up incredible numbers with the Panthers, and this is with, pretty rough quarterback play. Bears fans, we know bad quarterback play. The Panthers have had bad quarterback play during DJ Moore's entire tenure there. So he's coming in here. It's an offense going into year two. The Luke Getsy scheme. Justin Fields in year two of the scheme. DJ Moore just sets that whole receiving corps up now with him coming in as the number one. Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, these guys kind of, they'll settle into their roles now. Cole Kmet will do his thing at tight end. It's just like you said, it's an exciting time to be a Bears fan, and DJ Moore is going to be a huge part of that this season.
When we talk about the Bears, and I think it's pretty cool that there is quite a few players that show, because these are voluntary OTAs, and I'm reading all over the NFL right now because people are freaking out about certain players not showing up or who's. I'm like, guys. I get it. But I guess at the same time, when you look at this, you still have a coaching staff going into their second year together, and you got a whole bunch of new players coming in. So I guess I could kind of see the importance why when you see some of the players that did not show up, when I see like a Jalen Johnson not coming up, people are like, okay, why is he not? We got so many new players on defense. What's your opinion about that when it comes to that?
It's funny because with a guy like Jalen Johnson, he's in his contract year. So that's obviously what the media is going to go towards. That's what the fans are going to worry about. They think he's disgruntled. And until they come out and say something about that, I mean, I think that's just speculation at this point. There are some players just prefer to work out wherever they are. They stay home, they work out, they do their own thing. There's not a lot of going on here. And Jalen Johnson, he knows his role. He knows where he fits in this defense. So I think he'll be fine when he gets into camp. Nate Davis missing at right guard there. From what I understand, it's just kind of what he does every year. He just likes to prefer to work out at home. That's what he always does. But when it's time to show up, he'll be there and be ready to go. So, those guys missing is a chance for younger players to get some reps and a chance to show the coaching staff what they have. So it's good for the Bears as a whole, although you'd like to see your vets in camp.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you at camp, man. I can't wait to get out there with you. And I know I keep asking and stuff because I haven't been a part of that, but it looks like a lot of fun when you guys go out there,
Once those tickets go, I say on sale, they're free tickets, but once the Bears announce tickets, man, jump in that thing, put your name in. I think you're allowed to get 4 at a time. Try and get 4, man. And if you get them, I mean, if you don't have 3 people to go with you, you can find them on Twitter. Bears fans are hungry to go, and it's cool to kind of get out there and see what's going on at House Hall.
Yeah, that'll be fun, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, I could just feel it. And especially when it comes to Justin Fields, you read everything about Justin Fields right now, and what Luke Getzey said, that looks like he's definitely looks like a different player compared to last year coming in. Now, that's a lot of it is because that was also going into his second year in the league, but also he's going to be a little bit more comfortable in that second year in his offense. So what is it that you're hearing about Justin Fields that maybe he's adjusting to a little bit more now as he goes into this season?
Yeah, I mean, everything on field, off field, he's the QB1, man. I mean, he really understands his role. He wants to be the franchise guy. He kind of did what he did last year with all the running because he had to, because that offense, the whole team last year was just bad. I mean, there were only a few guys worthy of long-term success on that franchise. It's just a bad team, a lot of holes. He survived. I mean, he endured it. This regime now realized this is the guy moving forward. We kind of saw him make the big trade for Chase Claypool last year. They knew last year he was the guy. It's just been solidified seeing what he did. I mean, he was one of the most exciting players in the entire league last season. And this is on an awful 3-win Bears team. But, the ratings were there for Bears. The fans enjoyed watching it. And, there's a lot of buzz. I mean, I'm not expecting the Bears to be a title contender, this year, but man, it's going to be a fun season to watch them just kind of progress and see all these young players kind of develop together.
You got to kind of also wonder what's going on with like Nate Davis. The other day, you guys posted something about them not showing up to voluntary OTAs. And I really wouldn't worry so much about that, coming with somebody like Mooney or somebody like that who's been around for a little bit, because he could pick it up pretty quick and come back from that injury and be all right. And, he's going to hustle from us. But a guy like Nate Davis who just came over, you'd like to see him get out there. And I forgot who the other guys you mentioned, but see those 2 guys go out there. And like you say, it's only if you want to, voluntary, but why wouldn't you go out there and be a part of it,
Yeah, that's just from what like I said, I understand that Nate Davis is how he was in Tennessee as well. He didn't go to the OTAs. He just kind of prefers to kind of work out on his own at home. As far as him being in the first year in the offense, similar offense, what he has run similar stuff, in Tennessee, it was a similar scheme. I'm assuming some of the terminology is also the same. So if that's the case, he won't be too far behind. But he's like most guys. He's a pro. He's in his playbook. He knows what he has to do. And when the time comes, he'll be in there. And look, the Bears signed him to be their starting right guard. He's not losing his job because he misses some voluntary practices. He'll be there. It's a good chance for a guy like Tyree Carter to get some work now as a starter now as a second-year pro here for the Bears. So I think it's good. Like I said, it's good for the young guys to have an opportunity. But, man, you want your vets there. You want to have them start building the camaraderie, especially on the O-line, man. You for Tracks, I know you know, that's a team within a team. You want those guys all working together to understand the guy next to you are doing. He has Cody Whitehair at center. He'll have a rookie and right going to be at right tackle. So get together, learn what's happening there, and I think it's the best thing for the Bears to get all their vets back in camp.
And to get some unit cohesion too, to have the same guys there in and out. When you talk to all these guys that we've had on, former Bear stars, on the O-line, that was one thing that they always said is you always knew who was going to play to the right and the left of you. They just had repetitions that led to retention. And like you said, it's a team within a team. And if you always have somebody being switched out all the time, you don't really get that feel like, you and I, we've worked together. You've blessed us coming on this podcast. We kind of know each other a little bit. So it's a little easy to get a feel, where you're going to drop off, where you're going to pick up. Same thing with offensive line. I'm going to know that you're a little better on the outside than I am, and I'm a little better on the inside. So we can watch each other's weak spots and try to help out wherever, and communication is key too. And if you're not there, you can't communicate with each other. And then when it comes time for a real game, you miss all of that. So I do like the fact, though, that I saw some stuff with Justin Fields, down in Florida and some other guys. And then now up here, they've had some games where they've got together and they've watched, I think it was a Bulls game. They were all there. So you could see that there's something like Coop was saying. There's something in the air, and the team is really starting to buy into it and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Fields is that alpha guy. I mean, he has that mentality. The players, they want to do well for him. They want to play good with him, and he just brings that to the franchise. He's it's the Bears haven't had a guy that you can look at that position in a long time where it's like he's definitely the guy, and the Bears feel they have that now in Justin Fields.
But does he do it a little differently, you guys? I mean, what do you think, Coop? What do you think, Lester? I mean, does he do it a little differently? Because it seems at times like he is quiet. He's got like a quiet strength about him, but you always hear from his teammates and other people that he's a leader. And I mean, I have to take what they say for it, but with my eyes and I'm looking at him, I don't really see that. He doesn't pass that test where he's, on the sideline like you see like a Peyton Manning would, where he'd walk over to his players and talk, and you can see him get charismatic, or Tom Brady, or what I'm saying? Like, do you think he could grow into that? They were talking about that earlier, total off the subject, but similar situation. Nobody thought Jimmy Butler was going to work into what he is now. And it takes time to be an alpha, but do you think he's actually an alpha, like with his voice, Lester, or is that something that he's going to grow into? Like, what type of leadership do you think that they're seeing? Because I don't see some of that. I see some of it, but I don't see the verbal. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that's part of it is we see what Fox or CBS shows us. I mean, that's all we see. I mean, if you're like on the sidelines, you kind of see what he does. He does go to his O-line. He does go to receivers. He does bring him up for a powwow. But a lot of times when it's a broadcast on, they show him having those quiet moments of reflection, or those moments where he has the tablet in front of him, where he's kind of by himself looking at the plays, or he's talking to a coach one-on-one. They just don't always show those things. But if you're there, if you're on the sideline, from what I understand, he's engaged. He may never be a rah guy, and not all guys lead that way. Some guys kind of lead by example. They kind of lead with their actions. Their actions speak louder than words, and that just seems kind of how he is. But I think part of it is he'll grow into more of a vocal role if that's what he feels he needs to. I think it's all situational. I think he kind of knows how to read the room, so to speak.
Trex, you brought up an interesting point there. It had me thinking here for a second when you were talking about Fields as Demir, because every time I've watched him and do his interviews and post game and stuff, I actually liked it, because I kind of feel like he's got all that confidence in him, and it kind of keeps building, but he's got that quiet confidence. But then you look at some of the other quarterbacks and like Joe Burrow, a fiery guy, but he's also, in my mind, the second, third best quarterback in the league. But I believe a lot of things that coming out of his mouth. And if he says, I'm going to go out and win this game this week, I believe him because he's kind of proven that right now.
Yep.
And then you got Josh Allen, who's kind of more of a quiet guy. So, like, I feel like when it comes to demeanor with some of these all-star quarterbacks, it depends who it is and depends what their situation is because they all have – I feel like they have the leadership, but they all show it in different ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what Douglas just said. There's a lot of different types of leadership, not just vocal, but for whatever it is. I don't know what it is, guys, but I look at maybe it's the military in me, maybe it's the football coaches that I've had, but I've always needed that guy that's in your face, making your hair blow back. You know what I mean? And I just you look at a guy like Favre, you look at those type of guys that, I went to 6 home games last year and I watched this guy. I watched the O-line. I watched him on the sideline. I just didn't see that. I'm not saying that he can't be. Oh, here's a good example, Lester. You know how when they roll out right and you're trying to extend the play or whatever, never see him point his finger out, this, that, and whatever, or talk in that and that. Now I'm in the north end zone, down there, so I can't see exactly sideline what somebody else would see, but you figure you'd see a hand up or something like that. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully he'll grow into that stuff. I mean, even when he was drafted, to me, he was kind of quiet about it and kind of are you happy you're in Chicago or what are we getting here? You know what I mean? So I'm a big fan of him. It's probably going to be my next jersey. I was a little backwards. I went and got number 2 and then I'm going to get number 1. But, I'm a big fan of him. I'm just kind of I know you hear a lot, Lester. So that's why I'm asking this question because almost it's hard to ask a question about him without getting a firing squad at you because I know I'm going to get a lot of comments and blowback about this. You know what I mean? You can't touch Fields, man. It's oh, what'd you say about Fields? So
yeah, I mean, it's just a perspective. I mean, it's I mean, there are some. Like you said, some players, some people they need that. They need the guy in their face. And you know what?
Right.
At the end of the day, that's not really Fields' job. I mean, yeah, he's there to be a leader in the way he wants to be a leader. But if there's a guy that needs a kick in the ass, I mean, maybe that's Coach Flus's job or that's his position coach job. He's your teammate. He's not your boss. So I think it's he found his way to lead, and that's how he is. And plus, man, this is a 3-win team last year. I mean, if you're up yelling or screaming at guys and you're getting your ass kicked every week, that doesn't really have a lot of weight. So let's see as the wins come, as the Bears are more successful, see what he grows into. Then otherwise, then you're back in a Jay Cutler thing where it's oh, how come this guy's not saying anything? Yeah. He looks like he doesn't care. That's just the personality. I mean, as Bears fans, we knew Jay Cutler had that national perspective of a guy that doesn't care. But then you watch him play, he's getting sacked, 40 times a game. He's trucking defensive backs when he takes off out of the pocket. He's pissed off all the time. He cares. He just kind of showed it a different way, and that's kind of how Justin Fields is.
And kind of what you're saying too, Lester and Trax, you kind of just brought up coaching. I also feel like these coaches lay down a foundation. And in this day and age of coaching, it's much different than it was what it was 15 years ago. But if you look at some of the, look at Zach Taylor of the Bengals. That guy's kind of got the attitude, but he's got the players. He's like that player coach, and they believe in him. And I think that's why Joe Burrow has that. And then Kenny Pickett, who was a rookie last year, you're not coming in to lose games. That's Mike Tomlin's team. He's you're coming into Pittsburgh Steelers win football games. And I think that's how Kenny Pickett's kind of taken that. I'm going to go and win these football games. So I feel like these coaches kind of lay the ground for that too, especially in this day and age of football. Where you have so much to look at when it comes to outside of you got social media and everything else to put on top of that.
Yeah, it's a different era for sure. And like I said, as the team wins some more games, everyone kind of falls into their realm more. And I'm excited. I mean, watching him grow on and off the field is going to be exciting because he's here for the long haul. He's going to have a nice season this year. The weapons around him are better. The O-line in front of him is better. So it's going to be fun to kind of watch him grow into himself and kind of see where he takes this franchise.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does too and what he's going to do with DJ Moore. And I really think DJ Moore is going to open up the possibility of seeing what our other receivers can do when they're in their rightful positions, because I don't think any of our receivers had the rightful spots last year and the year before, because I mean, they were just out of position. But I really think having that true number one is going to help, Claypool be number two, Mooney number three, the tight ends flourish, and you're just going to see a lot. I'm looking forward to see Mooney over the middle instead of the outside. And I like to see, I don't know, how's that going to work, Lester? Because I noticed that when I was at the game, I noticed that Chase was left-handed. So you putting him over on the left side of the field, because potentially you would want mostly on your right. So that way, in your field of vision, Fields would be looking at there first, you're checked down and then read off to Moore and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But how would that work with a left-handed guy on the left side of the field? I mean, you'd almost want a right-handed, or where would you? I guess you would have him on the right
for the
side,
receiver. I'm not sure how much it matters as far as a receiver goes. I think, your successful offenses, if they have enough weapons, what they want to do is they want to move these guys around quite a bit. They want to look for mismatches, and you may have a guy like DJ Moore start off as your X, maybe Chase Claypool is your Z, Mooney's your slot guy. But in the scheme of things, as Luke Getsy's calling plays and he's calling motions, he's calling shifts, he'll put a guy like Claypool in the slot if he likes the mismatch. He'll put a guy like DJ Moore in the slot if he likes that mismatch. He's looking for guys to get matched up on. He'll work guys open. He'll do some shifts and get Cole Kmet singled up in a good coverage. So, we're going to see him again. You talk about the new weapons at receiver. Robert Tonyan at tight end is now the Bears have two tight ends. We haven't talked about the running backs. They have a better stable of running backs now. So it's going to be fun to kind of see how Luke gets in year two as a play caller, what he can do, because he's going to open up what he wants to do too. And if he can do that with Justin Fields, kind of spreading the ball around, I think it's going to make the entire offense better.
Well, Lester, you played tight end. You know how important it is to I don't know if you ever had. I've only briefly played with one dual threat quarterback. Mostly it was pocket. But I know you understand how important it is to hold your block through the whistle, from whistle to whistle, and all of that. And it's so hard when you see a guy like, come on, throw the ball. I'm getting winded out here. I'm sucking air. You think like we've got that this year? You think those guys last year that are not so used to that are going to be able to pick that up better as far as like blocking for him? Because I think it potentially, if he could have got a little bit more time from our offensive line, he could have really extended plays, and made different plays and whatnot. And also the receivers too are going to get a better feel as to where to go, where to break to get in his line of vision and where his hot spots are on the field and all that. I mean, what do you think as far as all that goes and the blocking and whatnot? Do you think we got those guys, or are they just straight maulers,
No, I mean, I think Nate Davis is a good pass blocker. Darnell Wright's a good pass blocker. He's probably the best pass blocking tackle in the draft. Bears plug him in the right side there. And you talk about Justin Fields rolling to the right where he should be more comfortable. Now you got a guy at right tackle who can kind of hold that block a little longer, kind of let him kind of get outside of the pocket a little more if he wants to do that. I think that benefits him. Tevin Jenkins going over to left guard. He was probably the Bears' best lineman last year. And then, of course, Braxton Jones going into year two as left tackle. I think overall what the Bears have up front, they've really upgraded it quite a bit. But again, part of that is it's on Justin Fields, going into his third year, his second year in the scheme. A lot of the protection it ultimately comes down to him. He has to know when to get the ball. Year two of the scheme, he'll know where his hots are a little quicker. He has a better receiving core now, so he'll maybe trust those guys to make plays now. And it's all synergistic. I mean, it all works together. The pass pro has to work. Justin Fields has to understand the pass pro. The receivers have to know if the blitz is on, if a guy like Chase Claypool's hot. Not last year he kind of came over in a trade. He may not have known all the site adjustments. He'll know those now because he's been, the half season last year, plus all of the offseason this year. He'll know what he has to do to make those plays for Justin Fields.
Matt's watched a lot of games for the Steelers, so he's got a good deal of knowledge with Claypool. What did you see last year with Claypool versus years past with the Steelers, Coop? I mean, do you think he can step in and really do what he needs to do?
That's interesting. Well, what he's referring to, Lester, is my girlfriend's from Pittsburgh, diehard Steeler fan. So we watch every Bears and Steelers game every Sunday. So I've watched Chase Claypool now for the last 3 years, every single game. Here's what I think will happen with Chase Claypool. He definitely fell out of favor with the coaching staff there, and I'll never forget it because me and her were sitting up at a game one time in Minnesota, it was in Minneapolis at US Bank Stadium. And we're watching the Steelers Vikings, and I'm looking down, and I just see Mike Tomlin yelling at somebody, and I'm like, Libby, look up, like, look who he's yelling at. She goes, that's Chase Claypool he's yelling at. So I'm like, oh man, he's not going to be on this team much longer. He did something. He caused like 2 really bad penalties, and like they just like it was a bad game for him. I think what happened there is they tried to make him a number 1, and he's not a number 1 wide receiver. He was doing things. He was very good at certain plays. Like I like some of the trick plays they ran with him. He's a very fast guy. I think they put him in the slot sometimes, and I thought he was very successful. But there were times where they would throw the ball up, and he would lose it, and it'd either be intercepted or it'd be dropped. And it just wasn't what they were. It's not the number 1 receiver they were looking at. And then they draft George Pickens last year, who I wanted the Bears to draft. I was very. I'm okay now, but then you look at George Pickens, you're like, okay, this guy's looks like he's going to be a legit number 1 wide receiver. That's what they were looking for. Chase Claypool was going to be. So now I think he just needed a change of scenery. I really do. I think that he needed to get out of Pittsburgh. He fell out of favor there. And now they can kind of put him in the right position and see where he flourishes from there. And I'm very excited to see that because it is his contract year too. And he seems like a really good guy. And you just cheer for a person like that. Does that kind of what you see too, Lester, when you looked at him last year?
Yeah, have you seen that before? I'm sorry to cut you off before you answer that question, but to go on with his question, have you seen that before with other teammates that have maybe the Bears have brought in and their morale boosted and they just shot up? I mean, to me right away, I'm thinking Brandon Marshall, but maybe you're a little deeper than that. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's a good example. Brandon Marshall kind of had some issues in Denver towards the end there. And then when he came to Chicago, just was, he flourished. And, sometimes it's just as simple as a change of scenery. I mean, Chase Claypool as a rookie was really good. You thought he was going to be an ascending player. And then he just had some issues there, the last couple of seasons in Pittsburgh. And part of it is a personality thing. Maybe part of it is he kind of started believing their own hype after his rookie season. Maybe just, maybe there's some immaturity issues, who knows what happened, but we're talking about a young player coming out of Notre Dame and kind of put in a situation where like you say, he was supposed to be the number 1. That's just not his best role. He may turn it into a number 1 down the road, possibly, but like this year, DJ Moore is clearly the one. Chase Claypool knows his role. I think the Bears are going to use him properly. And I do like the idea of using him on some jet sweeps, getting the ball in his hands, because we're talking about a 6'4" dude, big, strong. He's got 4.4 speed. He can do a lot of stuff for you with the ball in his hands too. So the Bears have a lot of that going on to the offense now. There's a lot of weapons now for Justin Fields.
Where does that put Velus, man? Is he the odd man out, or can he still come in there and get some reps?
I mean, he is what he was last year. I mean, he's the bottom of the depth chart guy. They want him to develop, obviously. I mean, they spent a draft pick on him, but he's going to come in kind of your gadget guy. He'll do the kick returns. Hopefully he gets back on the punt returns. But if you can kind of work him with a jet sweep here and there, get him, scheme up a couple touches for him a game until he earns more reps at receiver. I think that's how you deal with it, because you mentioned Claypool, you mentioned Mooney's also in his contract year, Equinemius St. Brown's in his contract year. Velus Jones is going to be here for at least 3 more years unless he gets cut, but there's a chance for him to make some plays, and he's just got to take advantage of the opportunity when he gets them.
I like what you said earlier about Cole Kmet. I really think I could see him playing kind of like that Dallas Clark receiver at times in the slot, and whatnot. But in the back position, I know Khalil has been flagged for not holding any blocks. So what's your, you worked with the backs and the offensive line, receivers, tight ends are special, man. They've got to run with the receivers, play with the offensive. I mean, you guys you're like a Swiss Army knife, Lester. What's going on when you look at a back that doesn't block? Like, where do you put him? Is it just very limited or whatnot, or what? How are they going to handle that? Because now we've got a loaded backfield. I mean, is he going to see? Did he just drop from like potentially the first running back to like potentially like the third now?
I've never seen Herbert as a true number one because you mentioned the pass blocking issues. But he knows his deficiencies also. So I would imagine this whole offseason he's working on the blitz pickup. He's working on knowing where the pass pro breaks down, where he has to be to pick those blitzes up. Plus, he's working on his hands out of the backfield. We haven't really seen him get a chance to kind of do that out of the backfield as well. So he knows his issues. If he wants to be the Bears number one, he has to work on those. But I think the Bears are set. I mean, they got Herbert, who we saw in a backup role a year ago, averaged 6 yards a carry. The Bears know how to kind of work in their talent. I mean, as far as the running backs go, Deonta Foreman will kind of come in and kind of have a role there. Roschon Johnson, again, he's more of a do-it-all guy. He kind of has the blitz pickup ability. He's pretty good out of the backfield. Not surprised me to see Roschon Johnson eventually become the lead back there. But regardless, they're still going to want to have a committee. They're going to want to get all these guys involved and keep attacking the defense with the run game.
What do you think about that, Coop? Do you think potentially that could happen, or do you think that it's just going to be like a committee? Or who did you get to see that guy in Carolina at all? I mean, do they play the Steelers much, or what?
I watched him. He's a good back. He is. I think he's a good back. He's a solid back. I do think they might miss Montgomery at some times this year. I think there are certain times where David Montgomery could be a little bit more explosive, I think, than Herbert in Foreman. At the same time, I do think it's a replaceable position. And I think we just got to see how the offensive line plays this year, too. Now that we got a couple of new pieces on our offensive line, let them gel together a little bit more. And I feel like they can open up the holes, and these guys can still be explosive and put up some big plays.
What about that fullback, Lester? Like, what are we going to do with him? Like, what do you see envisioning? Like, he's taking up a roster spot. I mean, like, really, like, I understand Tunyon, because, he's proven he could, if you got him running outside, chip block, whatever, and then go out for some passes, whatever. But a fullback, man, like, is this really necessary? What do you see, Lester?
Yeah, I was surprised that Kerry Blaskin didn't get more playing time last year, just because he is a good athlete. He has good speed out of the backfield. He is a good receiver out of the backfield. Bears just didn't use him in that way. But again, the Bears were not a very good team last year. I think we'll see his production kind of about the same where it was, where he was, a handful of reps per game. I think there may have been a couple games last year he was inactive based on the matchups they had. But you mentioned that with the guy like Robert Tunyon, if the Bears play a double tight end set, that takes the fullback off the field. So I think you're going to see kind of the best of both worlds. I think Blasingame, the Bears want a fullback. It's the style offense they play, that Shanahan-esque offense, always has a fullback there. But some of the variations of the offense is more double tight heavy. So the Bears kind of have options now. So I think we're gonna see what they do there. But I do want to see more Blasingame chances, because, man, I think he has like 4 or 5 speed. You don't expect that out of a fullback position.
No.
If you get him matched up on a linebacker one-on-one, I like that matchup sometimes for Blasingame.
And can you put him, like, walk us through like special, like, goal line and special teams? Is there a spot for a fullback there, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see, especially in this scheme, you see a lot of stuff out based off play action where you leak the fullback out in the flat, especially on the goal line. You see it all the time there. That's another variation of what they do with the double tight end set, kind of same thing. They have the tight end kind of block down, then leak back out to the flat. So again, the Bears offense was just, they had their moments last year where they had a nice stretch of games there, but at the end of the day, they just didn't have a lot of talent overall. So I think you kind of have a chance to see their playmakers now this year. Now they had a chance to upgrade a few spots. I think the playmakers all have a chance to kind of show what they can do.
You know what? Before we go over to the defense real quick, because we spent a lot of time on offense, but I know, your podcast is similar to ours, where you guys like to – I like how Ryan Poles says we like to work from the inside of the ball out, right? And that's basically what you guys do too, as well as us. But one thing that I do want to bring up, special teams, really quick, because we just touched on it. What is going on with the left-footed kicker? Is he going to stay on the team? And then also, did you guys see Where now, if there's on kickoff anywhere on the field, if you do the hand up to flag it off, automatically at the 25-yard line to eliminate injuries, because there's an uptick in injuries as far as kickoffs go. Like, seriously, man, like I really feel like we're taking away from some of the like the show, not the showmanship, but like the thoughts, the game plan, like the scheme way of special teams, man. Like, really, like that team is in itself, like they are like working proudly to scheme into those type of things. You're taking that away. You know what I mean? How do you feel about
that's similar to the college rule now, where if it's a you can fair catch the ball there. It's a safety thing. I was on a show earlier today and I was talking about the same thing. I see both sides of it. I understand that the concussions are up. There's some injuries, a lot of injuries in the kickoff. But so they want to make it safer, but at the same token, it's like they're taking away a very exciting play. I mean, that's especially as Bears fans, man. We grew up with, Hester, Patterson, Glenn Milburn, going back further, Gale Sayers. So there's always been exciting kick returners in Chicago. So we want to see that as fans. I understand it. And then you talk about the lefty punter. I think he's just kind of a camp body. I think it's one of those things where the ball comes off his foot differently. So having a lot of times you'll see teams, what they'll do is during the season, they'll bring a lefty punter in during the week if they're facing a lefty punter on Sunday. So now they just got a guy in early. They'll have him kind of come in here. He'll be in with them for parts of training camp. And then if he is cut, which I expect he'll be cut because this is Trenton Gill's job to lose, they'll bring him back if the Bears have a lefty punter on the schedule, and they'll bring him back just to get some work with the special teams.
Man, I wonder what that check would look like. You know what I mean? I always wonder about that stuff where you just bring them in, bring them out, bring them in, bring them out,
Yeah, it's like a consulting job for these guys that come in and they kind of just practice with you for the day. And, it's not bad work if you can find it.
Coop, what do you think about our defense, man? Do you think, like, potentially, since we solidified the inside of the defensive line, we didn't have that last year, we brought in more bodies, supposedly they got skills, whatever. Do you think that they could make guys like Gibson shine and other guys that we had that potentially didn't have that, kind of like Taylor was saying earlier, Lester? She was talking about how one side helps the other and all of that. I really think that could help. Like, we could potentially see Gibson go off, or that other guy that they brought in. What's his name? He wasn't even a defensive
Marcus Walker.
No, the guy that they drafted, he wasn't last year. He wasn't even a defensive end. And
Dominic Robinson.
Robinson. What do you think, Coop? Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, well, first off, I like when she talked about earlier with the linebackers. I think our linebackers that they picked up this year is going to be a massive improvement, especially with tackling. I think that's going to be very important that these guys can go to the ball and tackle, and that's going to be a good start. I do think we're missing out on a pass rusher, though. I really do. And I get it. There's still guys out on the street, but these guys that are on the street right now, they don't do much for me, right? Listen, I liked Frank Clark a lot, man.
I did too.
3-4 years ago, man, he was a great player, but there's a reason why he's not been signed yet. If you look at his stats from last year playing on the Chiefs, man, he really didn't have a good year until he got into the playoffs. Really? I'm still a little worried about that part, that we're not going to be able to get to the quarterback, and I think that's still going to hurt this team. That might lose us a couple of games. But I think we're going to have a better presence with our linebackers, and that's going to help out our secondary a little bit more. And I'm excited to see how they come together too, as these new guys are coming together on this defensive scheme in Eberflus and that system, because I think there could be some special things that are going to start brewing as they get together. But I still think we're a couple of we're a pass rusher short that I think it can really bite us, especially as we go on into the season.
See, I usually agree with you, Coop, but this one I don't know anything, right? Like, sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, Lester, you heard anything?" You're like, Lester's like, "Come on, man." But it's late, man. What are you doing? No, I'm like, seriously, like, I just have this feeling. I have this feeling that like the inside is going to help the outside, because I've been in the trenches. I've seen it before where, they teach you to block from the outside in, the fastest guy to the slowest guy. You position yourself that way. And now we've got those big guys, those big uglies that the offensive line's going to have to worry about. Potentially some of these guys might get double teamed, and you'll see an uptick in pass rush and stuff. You even mentioned earlier, Coop, these linebackers, they potentially could be, sack specialist or that zone blitz where the defensive linemen with the faster 40s than we have seen in the past, they go back to the linebacker position and then the linebackers come in on the blitz. I think it's going to be, I honestly think that our defensive ends or pass rushers could actually end up being this year better than the ones out on the street already that guys are gushing over, because there's a guy over there in the Colts that I just look at him like an average freaking he just middle of the road type guy, who bounced around from like the Colts and I think the Jaguars. He's on the Ravens. Colts now, but yeah. I don't really see a whole lot in him. And it's like, why does he keep getting bounced around if he's so spectacular? I think we've got something here. What do you think, Lester?
I think they're looking for an edge. I know that. Ryan Poles talked about that. They want to add an edge. He even talked about it. He's talked to teams in a trade possibility. So there's something brewing. It's just a matter of getting the right price. The thing, Ryan Poles, he's not going to panic. He's not going to go, he's not going to overspend to get his guy. Yeah. And then as far as some of these vets out there, if you can bring a veteran in to kind of just serve as that designated pass rush guy, if that's what he's coming in for, okay, it's third down, go get the quarterback. I got like Justin Houston possibly. There are a few guys out on the market that can kind of come in and do that. But like you said, maybe Dominique Robinson steps up. He has good speed off the edge. He was a former wide receiver in college. He's only been playing defensive line now, I think, for 3 years. So he's still growing into the role. Travis Gibson, he flashed a lot a couple years ago. He kind of had a down year last year. Maybe the new talent now inside will help unlock some of that. DeMarcus Walker, man, he's a guy that if you look at his skill set, he just never was able to kind of do what he wants to do. I think him now coming in now, he with the Broncos, he was kind of moving all up and down that line. He knows his role now. He's an edge. He'll kind of kick inside sometimes to kind of rush pass out of the 3-tech. That's what he did when he was in Denver. But he is primed for a breakout season, and he may have had that last year, but I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year. And then to push up the front, man, a guy like Billings, a fire plug guy, really strong at the point of attack. And then those 2 draft picks, Dexter and Pickens, there's something there inside. The Bears, like we said, they had holes all over the place on the roster, and they addressed, a bunch of it in D-line. But I'm with Coop, though. I think they need one more speed guy off the edge. Maybe it's Dominic Robinson. Maybe he shows that he can be that guy, but until we see it, it's hard to say that's going to happen.
Yeah. I know I'm the odd man out, but I'm going to be the Traxtodamus here and say that one of these guys is going to come out, because honestly, here's another thing you guys didn't think about. Check this out. Remember when Peyton Manning played for the Colts? Okay, so they would get up by 30-something points second half. Guess what happened? The opposing team would have to catch up to those points, right? So guys that were undersized like Dwight Freeney and the other guy, Mathis, I think it was, those guys, they freaking shined because they just had to, just rush. And he was always, the opposing visitor quarterback would always have to step back and then throw the ball freaking deep down the field to get these hurry up points, and then that's when that's when the Colts sack specialists would come at it. So, dude, we scored like on average 30 points a game, but our defense gave it up. And there were some things in our offense that could have gone better. The 3 of us can agree on that. But seriously, man, if we do any better on offense and our defense shores it up a little bit, who knows what we got on our hands? Maybe it's just enough, but I think I am the odd man out on this. I think we probably do need an edge rusher. I don't know. Coop, the only guy I had that was really excited about was Frank Clark, and you just blew that whole idea out the water. So,
dude, I'm here to blow some more ideas out of the water, man. I'm gonna get you all depressed before you go to bed tonight.
No, I just you made a lot of sense about Frank Clark. I'm thinking about his glory days and how great he was and all this and that. I didn't know that. I thought he got shipped off for like money situation. Same reason why that receiver got shipped off to the Dolphins, because you pay a $500,000 quarterback, you're going to lose guys. That's what I thought happened to Clark. I didn't know that. And I thought he was demanding a lot more than most teams have. I think, what was it, Lester, under the cap, we're at like 35 million. And then if we don't get paid, I think if we don't spend half of that or something like that, we actually get penalized by the NFL or something.
Yeah, I know there's a cap floor. I think they may actually be there. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I mean, I don't think they're in danger of getting that penalty. But yeah, the Bears still do have the most money available in free agency by a lot.
Yeah.
And a guy like Clark, I'm with Coop again, man. He had a rough year last year, but he turned it on in the playoffs. So here he is, a veteran, probably going to sit out the entire offseason because he just wants to go to a contender. But if no contenders come calling, and there's some money there for the Bears where you can come in and, rush the passer 10, 15 snaps a game.
Yeah.
Because he does have some nice juice off the edge. He does add something, that pass rush element. I mean, if that's all the Bears want him to do, I think he could find some success. But like you said, Trax, maybe it is Dominic Robinson. Maybe it is Travis Gibson. Maybe one of these other young guys kind of step up. But we'll have to see what happens as the season wears on.
But do you guys see like unless it's Pernell McPhee, a lot of the guys are freaking. I'm sorry, a lot of guys are like 35. And I'll have Pernell McPhee on the show and I'll be like, "What happened, Trax?" 35, 36 years old pass rushers are still getting it right now. You know what I mean? And Clark's like 29. Who knows? Maybe he had a bad hoof or something, or a wheel that was out of balance or something. We have no idea what was going on. But I will say this, guys. I have a feeling that if we get this thing on a roll, and I just can't believe when you look back that we had like 30 what do you call it, like 30 points a game or something like that. It just didn't seem like we got that, but somebody floated that out there. I looked at back, and then there was like 7 games that we could have won, and then there was like 8 teams that were playoff teams. I'm like, no wonder we sucked, and we had like 3 wins last year with the hodgepodge team that we get. Like I'm looking at, they set the post to like 7.7 wins. I'm looking at 11 or 12 wins, but I'm setting it at,
look at you.
Yeah, I'm setting it at like 10. But I'm saying my high side is like 11 or 12, guys.
Put that money down on the over and find the over where you can kind of juice it up and go over like 10, man. You'll be making a ton of money. And that'll be drinks on tracks next time we get together.
Dude, I'm going on my apps right now, man. I'm putting 10, 12 wins because of him, man. Just because of you, Track. So I'm going to go win some money.
If we had more time, I would show you guys, because I haven't even been able to do this on my own podcast. I haven't even been able to break it down from 1 to 18 what I think our wins and losses are. But when you look at it and you hear me, you'll be like, maybe I should drink his Kool-Aid because it sounds pretty good. I'm telling you, man, I'm really jazzed and excited, Lester. And I read your guys' stuff from front to back, and I'm looking at all these guys and what they can do, and I'm like, wow. Like that one guy you guys were talking about, and Coop, you were talking about this earlier. That freaking linebacker sounds like he's just as fast, if not faster, as Urlacher, and I think he's got like longer arms than Anthony Davis from the Lakers, man. Like they sounded like he's like really like lengthy and stuff. So I could see some batting balls and stuff, And what about that guy Zimmerman that you guys had? He was talking about a defensive lineman that we picked up in the draft, and he's talking about him batting down a ball and running it in for a touchdown. I'm like, heck yeah, man.
Fired up. Yeah, I mean, the Bears upgraded at a lot of spots on defense, and with a guy like Edmonds, he fits that. The Bears don't run a classic Tampa 2 like they did back in the Lovey day, but they still do elements of it. They still want that Mike linebacker to kind of take the middle third of the field away. And a guy like Edmonds, he thrives in the pass game, so he's going to help, man. I mean, it's the D line, it's the linebacker, it's secondary, all working in together, and there's now some talent there where Coach Flus and Alan Williams got to get their defense in line and do it how they want to do it.
Yeah, but Coop and Lester, do you guys think that other linebacker that we picked up that was undrafted we picked him up from
Sanborn?
No, from the Eagles. He was undrafted.
Edwards?
Yeah, do you think that we're like reading too much into it? We want him to be like a Sanborn, or do you think he's actually the real deal?
No, he's the real deal. I mean, look at his numbers with Philly. I mean, Philly obviously is a more talented team than the Bears, but
Right.
he's a tackle machine, man. He puts up a ton of tackles in Philly. He's just he's a good kid. I mean, he understands the game. He played high school quarterback.
Yeah, here.
He understands the game inside and out. And he wasn't highly touted coming out of Wisconsin, but those Badger linebackers, man, when they come to the NFL, they really thrive. And we kind of saw it with TJ. And he was the Bears' first big signing. Local kid. They want to bring him in, and he grew up a Bears fan, and I'm excited to see him play in Chicago.
Oh, he's from Wisconsin too?
Yeah, he played with the Badgers. He grew up in Illinois, but he went to Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that had to have been one hell of a team, ain't it? Jeez.
So Lester, this means now when the Bears only win 4 games this year, you're going to come back on at the end of the season and say, dude, Trax, you owe me some damn drinks, man, because we're losing our money because of you. We're listening to you. So you got to make that bet. You got to be sure to do that when you come back on later on.
We did a prediction article a couple weeks back, and this is really early, but I did have him with 10 wins. I think I was the high mark of our entire group that was given a prediction there. Best case scenario, I just can't see this team, not being way better than a year ago. I know going 10-7 is a stretch, but they have one of the easiest schedules on paper. They have the rest metric came out where the Bears have the most rest between games of any team. The travel miles is real low as well. So a lot of stuff's going right for the Bears. Plus they upgraded at a lot of positions. So I'm expecting as long as they stay healthy, this team's going to be in the playoff mix all season long.
All right, guys, really, really quick. We got to do this. He made me do it. We got to do this really quick. Okay, I want to go around the horn, starting from Coop, and then our awesome guest. I want to ask you guys really quickly, and then we'll finish with me, the top stooge here. What our wins and losses are going from week 1 Green Bay really quick. All right, Coop, Green Bay. What do you think?
That's a loss.
That's a loss?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they can win that one. I mean, we'll see what happens with Jordan Love. I'm not a big believer in him. I think he'll be okay. I just think, first game, I think the Bears are going to be able to pull that one out.
That's at home too, Coop. I hope you can make it. But like I was telling you, the cheap tickets are down here October 15th and the 22nd. If you're going to go to a game right now, those are the 2 cheap tickets. I don't know why Washington doesn't. Well, it's in Washington. That's why, duh. So, okay. So I'm going to say a win also. I'm going to have to agree with my boy Lester. I think it's going to be a win. I think we're going to be riding high. I think we're going to be excited. I don't think Love is going to have that repetitions leading to retention that Fields has. And I think we're going to be riding high, and it's going to be the great time to play them. I don't know about the final game, week 18 in Green Bay, but I will say this much. In week 1, I think we got them. All right, week 2, moving along really quickly. We're doing great. At Buccaneers, what do you think, Coop?
Baker Mayfield sucks, so the Bears are going to win that game.
Do you think they're going to end up keeping with Baker for week 2?
I don't know, man. Who's
behind him? Behind him?
Listen, man, what's funny is I like Baker Mayfield, man. He seems like he's a cool dude and all, but I can't see them winning that game with him. So I'll say loss.
Lost? Okay. Who's behind him anyways? Isn't it like Kevin Fisk or what?
Trask. Is
Trask.
still?
Trask. Kyle Trask. Yeah, that's
Kyle
it.
Trask. Yeah.
He might be playing. Who knows? You don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Bears can pull out the win. It's in Tampa, so it's going to be tough. Obviously, the heat may get to them, but that's not a very good football team. They're kind of going through their own thing. They're trying to rebuild stuff, and like you said, man, if they can get after the quarterback, which they should be able to, he's not the best. So I think that's another win for the Bears.
Okay, and I think we're all going to agree now. This is a full first all across the board. We're all going to go with a win. I agree with you. We're going to be without the underwear model Tom Brady, and I think that's going to go ahead and we're going to get a win there. And then moving on to week 3, Kansas City. You know what? We can't really do a true official it's not really like broken down into quarters anymore because you got that extra week. So let's just go ahead and we could kind of do a quarter. But anyways, at Kansas City, what do you think, Coop?
That's a loss. I just think I think they're just going to still be so good. Like, depending on injuries, who knows? But I still think they're going to be rolling so good. They're going to be in sync and at home too. So I'll say Kansas City on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a loss. That's one of the best teams in the game today. So they're not going to pull that one out.
I'm with you too right now. So I got two.
Oh man, you're blowing it, Trax. It's
that's my first loss, guys.
Okay.
That's actually, I'm going to say this right now. Hold on. I got to put this down because this is going to be really wild. I'm going to blow your hairs back. That is the only potentially game on the schedule that we potentially don't have a win for. I think all the other games are winnable games. This is the only one that I marked that's a non-winnable game.
16-1. You heard it.
There you go. Yeah.
No. What are you drinking, Lester? No, man. No, so I got 2-1 right now. I think Coop is 1-2, and I think you're 2-1, right, Lester?
I think so.
Not really good at math. I can read it a tape measure, but okay. So Denver Broncos. What do you think about that at home?
That's an interesting one. I don't know what that's going to be. I'm going to say the Bears at home for that one, but I don't know what Russell Wilson we're going to get because you have a good coach going in now. Sean Payton's a really good coach, and if he can go in there and get something out of Russell Wilson, I think they could be a much better team. But I still think the Bears can win that game.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the Bears have a good chance to win there. But like you said, with Sean Payton now in charge, who knows? I mean, he may have those guys turned around pretty quick. He's a winner. Russell Wilson, besides last year, he's always been a winner. So, but they got some issues up front on the O-line. So maybe the Bears can get after Russell Wilson a little bit. And Russell Wilson ain't the same guy he was years ago. So, maybe they can get after him a little bit and kind of get there. But I do think that's a winnable game for Chicago.
I do too, and I agree with you guys wholeheartedly. I do think Sean Payton is a factor, but I don't think it's going to be a factor in week 4. I think we are going to torch these guys. Now, here's the next game, and I have to agree with my buddy Woody over there at Mike the Bear Fan on his podcast. We're looking at Washington. What do you guys think about that one?
Who's playing quarterback for Washington? I mean, I think it's going to be a tough game because they're going to be a well-coached team. They got a good defense, but I mean, I guess you just got to put a circle around the quarterback. So I think that's a winnable game. I'll go another win.
Who is playing quarterback over there, Lester?
Is it it's the kid they drafted last year? I forget his name. It's not Heineke anymore.
No, Heineke left. He went to the Falcons.
Yeah, it's Howell, not Howell. Is it Howell?
No, it is him. It is him.
Yeah, so
yeah,
he's we'll see what he does. I mean, I'm not expecting much from him, but I think the key there, like you said, Coop, is that defense. They have a really good defense in Washington. I think they'll be able to stymie what the Bears want to do. I mean, they got one of the better D lines in the game, so they'll kind of slow the Bears down. But I mean, the Bears last year put a ton of yards up against them. They just couldn't score. So maybe the Bears want to go in there with a little bit of revenge. I do think it's a winnable game. If Justin Fields is playing like I think he will this year, I think that's a game the Bears win.
Yeah, Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah,
and
Brissett
Jake
there. That's right.
Jake from State Farms. Jake from State Farms, you sound hideous. But hey, man, honestly, I think that we might lose this one, man. I really think we're going to lose this one. I think this is going to kick us in the butt. I think we're going to have a tough game. I think Fields is going to be a little off that game. I think there's going to be some situations going on, and they've got a really good defense. They played us tough last year, and I think that's why I was at that game, and it was a rough game. Did you guys see today that they lost though? They didn't come in time. Well, there was a deadline for them to get their name, the Commanders trademark or something like that, and they didn't do it, so they might be forced to change the Commander's name, which I'm actually excited about that. I don't really like
It's a horrible name.
I think it's a horrible name. Okay, here we go. We got the Purple People Eaters a day after my birthday, and it's going to be in Chicago at noon. What do you guys think about that one?
Well, since it's a day after your birthday, I'm going to say the Vikings are going to win as a birthday present for you. But no, listen, the Vikings are an interesting team to me because I think they got a better defensive coordinator in Brian Flores this year. So, and I'm going to be interested to see how they perform, what Kirk Cousins does, because this is it.
That's interesting.
But I'm going to say the Vikings.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a winnable game. Another winnable game. I mean, the Vikings last year, talk about the Bears losing a lot of close games. The Vikings won a ton of close games. Are they going to have the same kind of luck this year? I think the defense should be better with Flores, but they lost some players. Kirk Cousins is he's a guy. I mean, he's fine. He'll win some games for you, but I think in Chicago it's another winnable game. I think it's. I think I got him with 4 wins now, so I think it's a little heavy there, but yeah, we'll give it to him again. We'll give the Bears the dub.
I think we're going to take the dub too, not only because the day after my birthday, but I also think that we're going to be pissed off about losing to Washington. We're going to be like, what the heck happened? And we're going to be like torching their defense because their defense is not going to be as good as it is right before the bye. I really think they're going to come together, and in Minnesota, they're going to return the favor there. So, but I think this is going to actually end up being a win, and it's going to be convincingly. Now, moving right along to October 22nd, I should be over my hangover by then, and we're going to be playing the Raiders in Chicago. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I don't buy in the Raiders. I mean, what Devontae Adams called them out last week about their offense. I mean, it seems I'm not buying into Josh McDaniels. So, and Jimmy G. Is Jimmy G going to be good quarterback by then? Jimmy G, or is he going to be hurt? So, yes, you don't. I just don't. I think they can beat the Raiders. I think they got that.
Yeah, I got to go Bears here too. I'm feeling like a homer now because I only got them with 1 loss through the first 7 games here. But man, like I said, there's a lot of winnable games. I mean, I think 10 is where I got them. But man, it's a lot of these can go either way. And the Bears, if they're playing like we hope, and Justin Fields take that step, and they stay relatively healthy, man, they could easily be 6-1 at this point.
I think this is an easy win. I think that Devontae is trying to go over and get hitched up with his ex-girlfriend in New Jersey. And I think that's what that's all about. But he's going to end up realizing he can't. He's a Raider for the current time. And I think he's just going to end up being one of those receiver divas. Because, he did play in Fresno State. He did play in Fresno State with Carr. So they set some records over there. I mean, they weren't like a big-time Alabama team or something like that. But they set the world on fire, man. So I'm a little disappointed about that shakeup over there. Okay, moving right along to October 29th at the Chargers. What do you guys think about that one?
It'll be a Bears home crowd, right? It'll be in LA. Yeah, it's in LA. So it's gonna be a Bears home crowd. But boy, the Chargers are an interesting team. I don't know what to expect from them. I have questions about their head coach. They got a great quarterback, one of the best in the league, but I feel like there's something off there. But at the same time, I think that's going to be a tough game to win. I'll go with the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think the Chargers pulled it out. I mean, for the last few years, they keep losing their defensive players. They get a lot of injuries over there. If they can kind of avoid some of the usual, bad luck they get, I think that's a good win. Like you said, Justin Herbert's a stud. That's a good all around football team if healthy. So I just think that's a W for LA.
I'm going the other way, boys. I really think the Chargers are going to stink it up. I think they're going to realize that they should have stayed in San Diego, and I think Herbert's going to have a tough game. It's going to be we're going to end up winning by like a field goal or something like that, but we're going to pull it off. And then moving right along to the 8th, November 5th at New Orleans. What do you guys think about that one?
Well, that's a tough place to play usually, isn't it? That's got a loud crowd, man. Those Saints fans they're intense. That's another one I just don't know because Derek Carr. I don't know what Derek Carr you're going to get. But they got some weapons on that offense, so I'm going to be interested to see how he with Olave, with the wide receiver Olave. I'm going to say the Saints on that one. I think it's going to be a tough road win to pull out.
Yeah, I'm going to go Saints too. Otherwise, I'm going to start getting into the 16-1 category that Trax has here. So
no, go with the win. Go with the win.
I'm going to go with the loss there for Chicago.
I got the win over there. I really think we're going to pull it off against the Saints. I don't think they have a good QB. I think they're going to miss Sean Payton. I just don't think that they could pull it out. And they've, let's face it. I don't know if it was Sean Payton or their GM. Lester might be able to chime in about this a little better than I can. Maybe not. I know he covers Chicago very well, but I'd have to say if anybody was well diversed in the NFL, he'd have a better chance at it than me or you, Coop. But I really think that he put them in a tough spot. I mean, they had a huge cap casualty. They've had to figure stuff out. I mean, one year I didn't even know that they were gonna. Was it last year or the year before? I think it was when Breeze retired. They were starting to have cap issues. So I think they've been hit pretty hard. And I heard a guy on a podcast saying that he was hoping they got a defensive lineman because they have huge defensive issues. So I think that Fields and company, and we're going to run it down their throat. We're going to find a way to stop their running back, and we're going to end up winning that game.
Nice.
Okay. And now we're in the Panthers. I mean, come on, dude. Do we even really have to? Come on. We fleeced their team. Come on. Do we have to go over this? Huh?
That's a win for the Bears.
Yeah, it's a win. But you know what? I think their quarterback's in a good situation there, though, with Frank Reich. So
Yes.
I think they could be very good in the next couple of years after year one, his struggles.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to take him as long as it did Fields to become good? And honestly, hey, keep in mind, guys, Fields hasn't really had a true 2 full years. This kid is literally a year and some change if you add it all up. So he was sitting under the red rifle, and now the red rifle's over there, and he's the starting quarterback. And I'm like, what's going on with this red rifle? Why do they keep putting this guy in as like a placeholder instead of just letting the guy start like Peyton Manning did? You know what I mean? Like, let the guy freaking play, man. You know?
Well, I think Coop mentioned that's a much better situation going with Frank Reich's offense and as your main play caller than it was with Justin Fields going into the Matt Nagy system and scheme. And Matt Nagy's shown that he's not really much of a play caller. He can't really know how to. He has a few nice designs, but he can't find a rhythm. But Frank Reich has proven he's done it. It's a much better situation for Young. I think he'll be fine there. I think in a couple of years that team, they'll be much better than where they are this year. But then this year is like an extra win for the Bears. The Bears need that win because that drops their draft pick down even further. And the Bears know that. I mean, that's going to be a big game for the Bears there.
Yeah, I'm glad we all agree on that win. Now, here is one that's really interesting. It starts to get a little spicy because, like I said, we're already lost at Kansas City. We've lost at Washington. All the others are for sure wins everywhere except for. So we've lost 2 so far, right, guys? Now, solid. So now we're gonna play in where they said that we're gonna bite their kneecaps off. You know what I mean? But potentially they've had some issues too, Lester. They had to get rid of quite a few guys because of gambling issues. So I don't know if they filled those roles in the draft or what's going on, but that might set them back a little bit. What do you guys feel about that? The Jared Goff and the Lions at noon in Detroit.
I think the Lions are going to have a pretty good team this year. I mean, I like David Montgomery going there. I like the running back they drafted. I watched a little bit more film on that running back they drafted and watching him catching the ball. That dude's a great receiver too. Like that dude's a stud, man. Like I was questioning why they drafted a running back that high, but then you watch and I'm like, okay, I get it now. So I think it's going to be – I think we're going to split with them. I think we're going to lose this one, but we're going to beat them at home if we want to preview it out.
Wasn't the last quarterback drafted that early, like Joseph Adai or something? Like it's been a while freaking since a running back has been drafted in the first round.
Watch the film on that guy, though, man. He's a stud, dude. He's good. I mean, if he translates to the NFL what he did in college, he's going to be a special player.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Campbell of the Lions said he was their top back on their board. They had him rated higher than Bijan Robinson. So they obviously love what they have in Gibbs. And I think that's just that's going to be a tough one for the Bears in Detroit. The Lions, they should build off what they did last season. They've been drafting really good the last few years. So I think Jared Goff he's fine. I kind of put him in that Kirk Cousins category. He's just good enough, but But I think with this team, with this offense, that O line, the running game, I think the Lions are going to be pretty good this year, and I think they get that one from the Bears.
Okay, all right. Well, guys, I really think this is our third loss of the season.
Oh,
I think the Lions are not going to be the Lions this time around. I do think after the bye, we are going to turn them into purring kittens, and we're just going to tear them up. Our knees are going to be healed, and we're just going to tear them up. So, but right now, this is going to be one of our first losses in a long time. So now we go over on a Monday night game, a primetime game. Coop, you know about the primetime, bro. You're in the lights. You know what it's like to be in there. It's an ESPN game, and we're playing against the Vikings.
I'll tell you what, man, going to a Vikings home game, that place is loud, especially if they're winning. Yeah, with those horns, man, that place is loud. You walk out of there and you can't hear anything. I'm gonna say the Vikings on that one. That's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I had the Bears beating them the first time around in Chicago, but I think in Minnesota it's a tough place to play, and by then I think the Bears are gonna have to find themselves a little bit because they're coming off a loss in Detroit. They'll take another loss in Minnesota, but yeah, I got the L there too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at this point, you guys have beat me up pretty well, so I'd have to agree with you guys and go ahead and say that we're going to take a second loss in a row. First time in the season, we're going to get 2 losses in a row. But we're going to lead up into a bye, and we're going to lick our wounds. And then we're going to, after we lick our wounds and get some rest and get our guys healed and all fired up, Fields is going to rally the troops, and we're going to play Detroit yet again in just 3 short weeks. We're going to be playing Detroit, and it's going to be in Chicago at noon, December 10th on Fox. What are your thoughts, Coop?
Now, that's the day after my birthday, damn it, so they're going to win. I said they're going to split.
What? Oh, man. See? Karma, dude.
Yeah, they're going to split. I think they'll split the Lions. I really do. I think they can win that game.
Yeah. What do you think, Lester?
Yeah, I'm going to say that's a good chance the Bears win that one. Off the bye. Like I said, last year the team was so bad. They couldn't really take advantage of the bye week. But I think this year they're the better team all around. They have more talent, up and down the roster. They'll take that rest. They'll really, take it and relish in it, and they'll come out and they'll get their revenge and win the second game against Detroit.
All righty. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to agree with you there. I think this is going to end up being a win, and like I said, we couldn't pull it off a few weeks back in Detroit, but I think we're going to handle business at home, and we're going to handle it in a very good fashion. It's going to be a great game. I think Tremaine is going to go off. Okay, here we go. TBD. What does this mean? What's going on here, Lester? What's this TBD at Browns?
They just haven't set the day of time for that game. The entire week 15 for some reason in the NFL. I'm not sure the reason, but all the games across the league have got that kind of waiting to see what the schedule happens there. But I think that's I'll let Coop go first since he's been kind of going first all the whole time here. So
what Deshaun Watson is going to be showing up this year. But did you see the Browns have really upgraded on their defense? And I was watching some of their videos earlier today. They got the safety now from the Chiefs, who's bringing in all the leadership. And he's talking about winning. They got Darius Smith over there. They got Tomlinson over there from the Vikings. You go with Garrett. I mean, their defense is stacked. And I guess if Deshaun Watson plays anything like he did a couple of years ago or anything like that, I think that the Browns are going to be a very good team this year. If he doesn't, and he plays kind of like what he did last year and he was rusty, I think they're not going to win many games. So I'm going to say Cleveland on this one. I'm going to think that Deshaun Watson's going to be better than what he was last year.
Same. Yeah, I think Watson, I mean, he showed a couple of years ago he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. What he did with the Texans there. And, last year he missed, 12 games. So he definitely came back and he just wasn't the same player. But now he has a full off season. He'll have the full preseason. He'll have his entire season leading up to this as long as he's healthy. But that defense is really good. The offense is, they have one of the best backs in the league. They have an incredible offensive line. I think they just have more weapons than the Bears do. I think they pulled that one out in Cleveland.
I think that he's not going to be a factor. I don't think the quarterback's going to be a factor. He's either going to be worried about some legality issues at this point in Cleveland, or he's just going to have way too much oils on his hand to throw the football. I think he's going to fumble a couple times, and the Bears are going to pick up the ball, and they're going to take it back to the house. I think we're going to end up actually winning by a few scores, two and a half, maybe 3 scores. We're going to beat the bricks off of the Browns in Cleveland. December 24th, a day before Christmas. Do we get our early Christmas present under the tree at 3:25 versus the Cardinals in Chicago? What do you think, Coop?
Yes, you can move on. That team's going to be terrible.
Yeah, that's a bad team. They're quietly tanking, I think, this year. We'll see what happens with the quarterback, Murray. I mean, but I think they want to just kind of take this year as a reset. That's a bad team.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same way, guys. I think it's another win. We're riding high. We just did 3 in a row, potentially 4. We'll see what you guys think about the Falcons. December 31st, New Year's Eve at noon against the Falcons. Are we going to tear it up, or what are we going to do against the Falcons?
Falcons are an interesting team to me this year. They were improved all over the place. They spent money just like the Bears. I think they were the second team they spent the most money this offseason. They went and got a lot of players. I think their draft was pretty good. What's their quarterback going to be, though? What is it going to be? Desmond Ridder, the Cincinnati kid that I saw playing for so many years when I lived there, or is it going to be the guy Heineke from Washington? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to play. So that's going to be tough, though. I'll say the Bears on that game.
You got them winning that one?
I got him winning.
Yeah, I think they could win that one. I think they want Desmond Ridder to be their quarterback. Mm-hmm. So if he's healthy, he'll be the guy. I like Heineke. I've always liked the way he's played the game. I would like to see him get a chance to kind of show more, but I don't think that's in the cards in Atlanta. I think they want to see what they have in their young quarterback. So I think he's just – but I don't believe in him. I don't think he's very good. So I think that's going to be a game the Bears can pull out.
I think we're going to spank them. I think the Bears going to eat the Falcon and swoop it out of the sky and just tear it up. I think we're going to end up winning by several touchdowns, and it is just going to be a beatdown from the old Bears to the new Bears. We're just going to spank them up. So now here's the deal. Here's another TBD. Lester, what's going on, man? In Green Bay, what's going on, guys? What do you think?
You're going to hear MVP chants for Jordan Love, and they're going to beat the Bears.
Wow.
Take that. What do you think of that, huh?
You have the Packers sweeping the Bears. Then,
I do. Yeah. I'm a secret Packer fan.
Oh, man. I think week at this point, I think since I went 10 wins with my prediction a few weeks back, I got to go with the L here. That makes me perfect at 10-7, like I said. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not sure Jordan Love's the guy. We'll see what happens the last week. Maybe the Bears have something to play for. Maybe the Packers have a draft pick to play for. So who knows? But I think at this point in the season, I'm going to go with the Packers. And it pains me to say.
This is very interesting for me, guys, because I have a hard time. This is a flex loss for me, flex win. I potentially think that we could sweep Green Bay, but it all depends on what happens. I know for the most part, their receivers all went over to New Jersey, right? There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that are happening, guys coming in and out, whatever. They got a new guy at the helm. It's the end of the season. They don't have nothing to play for. I mean, they're going to pack it in and hopefully get a better draft pick, but they're going to be middle of the road, and they're even going to mess up getting good draft picks, because I think they're going to have probably about 6 or 7 wins, and that's going to put them in the middle of the first round next year. Or did they give up their first round draft pick to New Jersey? So do they even – maybe they try to win. This is why I have a really hard time figuring whether this is going to be a win or a loss. But in the end, I am going to have to say that this is going to be a loss and stick to my 13-4 record. But I wouldn't be surprised if we flexed to 14 wins. So
you did the math on the fly there, man. That's good. I thought your math
I'm
was
sitting
bad.
there counting in my mind. I can't even count right now. So I'm like, wait, how many wins did I have?
Well, you know what? I can't count either because I told Lester we only need him for like 30 minutes, and I'm just gushing that he's on. It's been so long, man. He's so awesome, and I see exactly why people hold you over longer than they probably should. And thank you for your time, brother. It's always a pleasure to have you, and oh man, it's great. So, hey, as if we don't already know where to find you, just let's do the drill. Where can we find you at? What's going on? Any new things going on? And what's up?
Yeah, we got I know we got 2 podcasts dropping tomorrow. One is going to be audio only. Taylor talked about it earlier. She has her show come out tomorrow morning. And then, of course, we have Mason's Bare Bones. He'll do the podcast and video thing on our video channel, Second City Gridiron. Anything I do is at windycitygridiron.com. And, of course, you can find me on Twitter at Wiltfong JR.
Okay, awesome. And that's where we'll find you. And hey, I'll tell you what, you guys have been a real pleasure having everybody on the show. I mean, Jacob's been on. It's been amazing. Pretty soon, your counterpart from you guys still do the beers and balance or beers and what's the
Bear and Balanced?
Yeah.
That's one of the shows I do. I do that one with Jeff Burkus. I do that show with him, and then I have my own podcast, Two French Conversation. During the season, I do it with usually with Mason. I got to see if he's doing it this year because it's to look in his perspective because he's a doctor, so he kind of gives a good perspective on all the Bears injuries.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I talked to I talked to him the other day, and I let him know that I potentially might find you guys out there for that camp and sit there with you guys and whatever, and then maybe go grab a bite to eat when the camp's over or something like that, and see if we can have you guys on after all that, and just the 3 of us get together, chop it up with Coop or Foz or whoever's where on Monday or Wednesday, however it works out with your schedule, since you got so many irons in the fire. But everybody's thanking you right now. They're all over the place. There's Douglas. Thank you guys. And Taylor, excellent show tonight. Linda Sams Baker, thanking you. Facebook user, thanks Lester, enjoyed it. And there's Linda again. Thanks, all you guys did an awesome job on the show. So
guys.
Yeah,
thanks
we
for having me
love
on.
you.
It was fun.
Yeah. All right. Have a good night.
All right, take it easy, guys.
See it. Man, Matt, that was really cool, wasn't it? That was a great show. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Did we lose audio? Can you hear me? You can? I can't hear you. So yeah, Coop, thanks for having us on and bringing it in. You did an amazing job, and look forward to hearing from you next Wednesday on the show. And you've been doing a great job QBing and everything. Sorry we took it into extra innings, man, but whenever Lester's on, man, he's great to have him do a long show with. So all right, buddy. Have a good night, and everybody bears down.